Well, the sun is shining here in Rustenburg. The floodlights are on. Bizarrely, they're not necessary at all. The flags are fluttering just ahead of us, and the vuvuzelas, of course, are blaring out the soundtrack to this World Cup. Some people love them, some people hate them. I have to admit, I'm in the camp of the former. I think that they're fantastic and they create quite an atmosphere, which is probably what we need at a game like this, bearing in mind that the 44,000 capacity stadium is far from full, to say the very least. So I would estimate it's probably about half full, as we are just a few seconds away from kick-off. But this scene here at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium is the scene of what could be a momentous day in the history of these two clubs. For Slovakia, as Ian was saying earlier, it's their first ever appearance at a World Cup final since they gained independence in 1993. And for New Zealand, they did play in the World Cup 28 years ago, but they lost all three group matches. The New Zealand players, dressed all in white, are in a huddle in the left-hand half as we look. The Slovakia players, all in blue, are ready to go. So I'll run you through the two teams. For New Zealand, in goal, Mark Paston. They're playing a 3-4-3 formation, fairly unusual these days, with Winston Reid, Ryan Nelson, as we were just hearing about, and Tommy Smith at the back, he of Ipswich Town fame. A midfield of Leo Bertos on the right, Ivan Viselic, Simon Elliott and Tony Lockhead, with Chris Killen of Middlesbrough, Rory Fallon of Plymouth and Shane Smelts up front. And we are underway in Rustenburg with New Zealand, all in white, the All Whites as they're called. Rather less illustrious side than their all-black counterparts, attacking the goal away to our right. With Graham Taylor alongside me. Graham, we were just quite grateful to be here after the journey we've had.
Yes, it was very eventful. Somehow, when the driver said, or when we said he turned right here, he turned left, and consequently we've pretty well covered most of South Africa getting here.
It's supposed to be an hour and a half journey, and it took us something like 4.5 hours, so that gives you some idea of the fun and games we've had coming up from Joburg as the ball is out of play over the far side. That'll be a throw-in to Slovakia. Looking forward to seeing their star player, Marek Hamšík, the number 17. He's a Napoli player, formerly of Brescia, having been plucked from Slovakian footballer as a 17-year-old player. And Slovakia in possession on this near side, the left, the West Bromwich Albion player, Marek Čech. Now here Slovakia coming forwards, attacking the goal away to our left. The sun's shining, but it really is pretty nippy. We're dressed in fleeces and jackets and jumpers and all sorts, as Simon Elliott, the former Fulham player, nips in to win back possession for New Zealand as the ball goes all the way back to the goalkeeper, Mark Paston.
Well, in the very, very early stages of the game, it's already said that this may be not the most exciting game. The ball is being moved about very, very slowly. And when Slovakia have the ball, New Zealand aren't pressing them. They're just letting them have the ball. And I can see the sense at times, as long as Slovakia keep it in front of them, as they are doing now, then there's no danger to them. So the very opening moments show that this is probably going to be a very tactical game.
Well, it's absolutely essential that New Zealand manage to keep their shape, and they work extremely hard, and they've been working on organisation above all else, because they clearly don't have the talent that other sides have at this World Cup. Very much the minnows of the tournament. As Slovakia pick up possession with Robert Vitek. Now back to the Liverpool player Skirtle, who missed the last 3 months of the Premier League season. Now New Zealand now in possession with Chris Killen coming forwards. It's still Killen, he has options on the left, but he goes for goal, tries to chip the goalkeeper is a couple of yards over the bar. He had options to his left in Tony Lockhead, and perhaps, Graham, he should have taken it.
Oh, definitely should have taken it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's wide open. You sort of zip it out to him, and you get right in behind the Slovakian defence, and you create far more problems there than he did. It was poor play on his part.
We played almost 3 minutes at the Royal Bafokeng Stadium, where England played their opening Group C match against the United States. The less said about that, the better. I think we've talked about that plenty for now, haven't we? It'd be very interesting to see how they get on against Algeria on Friday. I saw Algeria in their opening game against Slovenia, and really England shouldn't have a great deal to fear. But of course this is England, and there's bound to be plenty more twists and turns to come. The ball's out of play on the far side. New Zealand have a throw-in. Tony Lockhead to take it. Looking for a long run-up. He has Shane Smelts up front, a player who's plied his trade in the non-leagues of England before. Gives you some idea as to the lack of strength and depth really that New Zealand have, and they've won a free kick over the far side.
And this is where they could be threatening. I'm pretty certain that what will have happened when they get their free kicks, when they get their corners, they can see them as goal-scoring opportunities. You can put the ball into the penalty box, and I'd be most surprised if they hadn't worked and practiced at these.
Well, there are 5 white-shirted players inside that penalty area, outnumbered by the blue shirts of Slovakia as they prepare to take the free kick over the far side. Left-footed in towards the 6-yard box, and the header comes in, and that was a difficult one for Muka, the goalkeeper, to deal with. He gathered it at the second attempt. It was Chris Killam with the header, and he'll feel he should have done better.
Yeah, he got up, he rose above the defence there. I thought he could have directed, as you say, Jackie, I thought he could have directed his header into the corner. Didn't do that, and straight at the keeper. But we just saw there what we said earlier, the threat that they can pose from free kicks and corners.
Well, it would be quite an upset if New Zealand were to get 3 points in any of their games. They'll probably feel this is a decent chance that they have, as Slovakia now coming forwards on the right-hand side, cross into the centre. It was from Vladimir Weiss, the young Manchester City winger, son of Vladimir, grandson of Vladimir, as the low cross driven into the centre, but no danger whatsoever for Mark Paston. Easy for him to dive on, but perhaps if one of the players had gambled and run into the space in front of the goalkeeper, it could have made life a little bit more difficult for them. So best chance so far, though, coming from the underdogs, New Zealand. 0-0 on 5 Live. A reminder, the opening day of Royal Ascot coming up later. 2:30 the Queen Anne Stakes, and then at 3:50 the St James Palace Stakes. We'll keep you posted on all the news from Ascot as the cross comes in from the right-hand side for New Zealand. It's palmed away by Muka over to the far side. It's a decent cross in from Leo Bertos, another player who spent time in the English lower leagues. And still New Zealand putting on the pressure in the early stages. Cross into the centre over the head of everybody, and there's a foul there. And that'll be a free kick to Slovakia.
There's talk, isn't there, of Muka going to Everton?
Yes, he's signed. He's moving there from next season.
Yeah.
From next month, rather.
So we'll do a report for David. Well, no good now if he's going, isn't it? Don't want to go back to Moisey and say, ooh, kept dropping him, David.
It's a good job you knew that he's actually signed him already.
Yeah.
So if he said, I wouldn't bother signing him, I know you were looking at him, and he says it's a done deal, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Well, he's going to have a job to dislodge Tim Howard, though, from the Everton goal.
Yeah.
Goalless so far in the Royal Bafokeng Stadium. Slovakia in possession. We haven't seen too much of their superstar. Here he is, Marek Hamsik, as he lays the ball off to Čech on this near left-hand side. Forwards towards Weiss, and forwards from Hamsik again, but just too far ahead of the forward Stanislav Sešták, and it's gone all the way through to the goalkeeper, past it. Yeah,
for the very first time there, we saw a little bit of combination play by Slovakia and just opened up the New Zealand defence. They're short passing, a little bit quicker. They need to do more of that if they're going to present problems to New Zealand.
This is the first time, of course, that Slovakia have played at the World Cup as Slovakia. They only gained independence in '93, but they do have a rich history as Czechoslovakia. They played in 8 World Cups, got to 2 finals as the ball's overrun for Weiss to chase. And of course they won the 1976 European Championship, and 15 of that squad were actually Slovakian. So whilst they're a new nation to the World Cup, they have plenty of footballing history, whereas for New Zealand, of course, it's far more difficult for them to put together a world-class side, bearing in mind that they're so much a rugby nation. As the ball's headed back to Muka, who's dressed all in red. Apparently a lot of the players, according to the coach, do play football, and it's a big sport up until the age of about 13 or 14, and they absolutely love it, but then rugby takes over. They're probably bullied into it by their fathers by that stage, I thought. I
think that's what Ryan Nelson was meaning, wasn't it? In football terms, of course, not a big nation at all. And it's difficult for them when they come up against certain teams. Yes, they have qualified in what you would say is a poor group, really. But as I said earlier, that's all that they can do. Now it's up to them. They've got the chance. They're here. And can they actually take on the challenges that are going to be presented to them? So far, they're handling it okay. But I think Slovakia need to up their game if they're going to really cause problems.
Goal kick to New Zealand. Well, yeah, they did finish top of a group containing Fiji, New Caledonia and Vanuatu. So it's easy to argue that, well, maybe they shouldn't have a place in this World Cup finals. They came through a playoff 1-0 on aggregate with Bahrain. But then it is a World Cup, as the point's been made. I've been having this argument the last couple of days with some of my colleagues, and you think geographically you need a team like New Zealand here, even though we've got Australia as well from the Asians.
This is the World Cup. It's about the whole world. This is why I'm very happy the tournament is here in South Africa. It shouldn't go to the rich and more wealthy countries and those that play football all the time. It should be spread around the world.
Here's Lockett for New Zealand on the far left-hand side. Tried to get the cross in from near the corner flag, and it's put out for a throw-in 10 yards away from the corner flag. New Zealand not showing any nerves in the early stages as the crosses come early, and it was a header down wide of the left-hand post. The Slovakian defender just managed to get his header in there in front of the striker, and it'll be a corner to New Zealand.
Jurichu there sort of got in, I think in front of Fallon, and that I think it's going to be New Zealand's strength here, getting the early crosses in.
Well, they have a corner now. Wonderful opportunity to try to take the lead. They have tested the palms of the goalkeeper Muka so far as the corner comes in. And there were several white-shirted players up there, but none of them able to guide it goalwards, as it's picked up now by Bertos. Cross in towards the centre, cleared away. Now picked up by Slovakia, but Bertos wins it back again as he runs into his teammates. Still Bertos does really well before he's challenged, and he wins a free kick midway inside the Slovakia half.
Another free kick in an area which can be put in. It will go into the penalty box, there's no doubt about it. And Ryan Nelson coming up, New Zealand players in there, and I don't want to keep harking on about it. Not been a great game at all, it's been slow, but these are chances for New Zealand. They do cause some problems for Slovakia when this ball is put into the penalty box from these free kicks.
And Simon Elliott, the former Fulham midfielder, stands hands on hips, ready to take the free kick. He has 5 players in the penalty area, but he doesn't manage to beat the first man, much to the frustration of his manager, Ricky Herbert, as it's a bit of head tennis. Neither side able to take the ball under control. Now it's picked up by Slovakia on the halfway line. But Vladimir Vitek, tried to play the ball through, and the break was on there, Graham, but as we've seen so far, the players haven't chosen the right pass so far when it's mattered.
Well, if there's one of the sides I'm disappointed in so far, it's Slovakia. You know, in terms of the expectancy, how they play the ball, you know, a short passing game, they've got out of their group very well. But I expect to see the ball move much quicker and much sharper. The pace of the ball is too slow. And whilst they keep doing that, they're not going to cause much problems for New Zealand.
Well, the real surprise is that Hamšík hasn't got into the game at all so far, as New Zealand once again coming forwards. The ball's flicked forwards by Killen in towards the penalty area. It's cleared again away by Slovakia. But you wouldn't know that it was New Zealand, the side that people are taking the mickey out of for being non-leaguers and part-timers.
Not at the present time, no. I mean, yes, certainly Slovakia have a bit more combination to their play and combine their passes than New Zealand do. But at the present time, it's an even game. It's not the best quality, and it would be silly for me to actually suggest that it is. But it is an even game, and as I've said earlier, that when New Zealand do get the ball into the penalty box, they do pose a threat.
Well, the Slovakia coach Vladimir Weiss isn't too happy with what he's seen so far. He's out towards the edge of his technical area. He's had a word with Marek Čech, who's just right in front of us. Slovakia all in blue. There's glorious sunshine, but it is really cold underneath the only roof that we have here in the Royal Bafokeng Stadium in the north of South Africa, as the ball's played down the right for Slovakia, and nobody there. They just haven't got into the game at all so far. Really disappointing start from them.
Yes, I expected more, there's no doubt about that. And you know, the front players haven't really shown for the ball very much, particularly when it's come through the midfield, and it's disappointing.
Well, Ricky Herbert will be happy enough with what he's seen from his New Zealand side so far, without any goals after almost 13 minutes. Ricky Herbert, who played for Wolverhampton Wanderers in the mid-1980s. He won't be wanting to remember too much about his time there. He helped them plummet down the divisions effectively as they went from top division to bottom division. And he used to have a game at Molineux at the time. They used to get the golf clubs out, and it was staff against players. They used to try and chip the ball from the penalty spot over the North Bank and into the golf course, into the car park. Is that anything you tried when you were there?
No.
You're far more sensible.
Well, no, very few could chip it, you know. No, I apologise for that, really. It's just, I think, really, by talking about what we're just talking about, shows that really nothing is happening on the pitch.
There's nothing going on the pitch,
There's just nothing happening on the pitch at all.
Well, here comes Slovakia with a cross in from the right-hand side towards the far post. Headed away, though, by New Zealand. As Hamšík now picks up the ball on this near side. It's been such a slow game. Very few chances. We've seen very little from Slovakia whatsoever. As Hamšík now picks up the ball again. Marek Čech now of West Bromwich Albion. Lays it back. Hamšík again on this near left-hand side. Crosses into the centre. Easily dealt with, though, by Paston, the goalkeeper.
Is it true about Paston that following an injury, he hasn't played a competitive game since December? I was reading that somewhere. Now, that's something to come into the World Cup for, isn't it? If you come in June time.
Yeah, he missed the last 3 months of the season through breaking his leg, but there are a lot of players in that situation. They just don't have the strength and depth to be able to pick players who actually fit. There's one of the players here, Dave Mulligan, who some English football fans remember. He played for the likes of Scunthorpe and was released by Port Vale. He didn't manage to get into the Wellington Phoenix side for the entire season, not because he was injured, he just couldn't get in the side, and yet he's still been picked for the World Cup by the same manager who didn't pick him all season.
That's interesting, isn't it? Listen, I'm not going to pick you for the club side, but I will pick you for the national side. Doesn't quite add up, is it?
Exactly. It's fair to say it doesn't show that there's a lot of strength and depth, but apparently he's been brilliant in training. So here comes Slovakia. They're picking up the ball. They haven't had a single shot at goal so far. Paston has led a charmed life. Well, that's a strange clearance by Lockhead in the penalty area. He's cleared it to very close to the corner flag. And a throw in to Slovakia. They haven't had a great deal to defend so far, New Zealand, so it'll be interesting to see if they do manage to deliver any decent balls into the box or create any opportunities. Haven't tested the keeper. Here's their star player, who we haven't seen a great deal of, Hamšík. Now Čech crosses into the centre, and again easily plucked out the air by Paston.
Taken very comfortably, isn't it? I mean, for the listeners who probably guess that there is next to nothing happening in this game at the moment, and it's a very hard one to comment on, really.
Not had a great deal of joy so far. The last game was Algeria-Slovenia, which was really, really poor. Although it did liven up in the second half when a substitute came on, got himself booked, then got himself sent off within minutes. And then we had the most, comical of goals, really, with the goalkeeper making an extraordinary howl of the Algerian chap and thought that he might be dropped. England and Algeria could have 2 new goalkeepers come Friday. We shall see. Here at Slovenia on the attack with Vitek. Well, it was a shot that was high over the bar. He thought he was just going to pop it into the danger area for one of his teammates, but he fancied having a crack himself. And again, Paston hasn't been tested.
No, he hasn't. No, but to say the whole game is generally slow. The movement of the ball is slow as well. And you can see, though, to be fair to New Zealand, particularly out of possession, they organise themselves. They know where to drop into, how to get the shape of the team right in relation to where the opposition have the ball. So that's of credit to them. It isn't anything like an exciting game at all, and I think probably it will be decided on one little bit of magic from someone or a major mistake.
Well, New Zealand have a free kick. They had a decent opportunity in the opening minutes through Chris Killen. His header straight at the goalkeeper, Muka. And now Simon Elliott, the fair-haired midfielder for New Zealand, will take a free kick. 10-15 yards or so inside the Slovakia half. New Zealand attacking the goal away to our right. Goalless in Rustenburg. Elliott with a free kick, and it's high over the heads of everybody. Was it just kept in at the end, in fact? No, it wasn't. It just gone behind, and that'll be a goal kick.
Yeah, not be too happy with that. I think there was an earlier one where he sort of went, the first defender got it, and this time I think he's tried to compensate for that and overhit it. So you can have as many free kicks as you like, but if you don't get the delivery right, they're just wasted.
Simon Elliott, who's actually looking for a club, he was released by the San Jose Earthquakes in the United States. There are a few players in this World Cup looking for clubs, and Elliott will want to impress. In his mid-30s now, seems a veteran in the game as Slovakia in possession. Really disappointing start from them. We haven't seen any of the quality that saw them actually reach this World Cup, and they finished top of their qualification group ahead of Slovenia, 6 points clear of their neighbours, the Czech Republic, also ahead of Northern Ireland, Poland and San Marino, as New Zealand clear the ball away again. Really, this is a poor start from them. I tell you what, the Mexican wave starting just proved what a poor game this is. It really is dire, and no, we're not joining in, sorry. The lady in front of us has just joined in, but we're going to give it a miss. There really is not a great deal happening. You're listening to 5 Live. We're hoping something's going to happen on the pitch any minute now, as Slovakia are in possession, coming forwards with Sturber. And now here's Vladimir Weiss, the Manchester City youngster. Crosses in from the right-hand side. He just scuffs his cross, though, and it's easily dealt with, though, by New Zealand. Big things expected of Vladimir Weiss. He came in for some criticism, as did his father, when he was picked, having barely played a couple of substitute appearances for City. Then he did really well on his debut, and he answered a few critics, and now he's seen as very much a mainstay on that right wing for Slovakia. He played a bit of football at Bolton this season, but he only managed to get 3 Premier League starts, having joined them in January. But they'll be needing better crosses from him than we've seen so far in the opening stages, Graham.
Yeah, I mean, the danger that we have is that, in all honesty to the listeners, there's really nothing to say. When Slovakia get the ball as they have now, they're just keeping it in their own half of the pitch. New Zealand drop off them. Slovakia are not even looking to get the ball forward. It's slow. It's very, very difficult to sort of talk up the game.
Well, he didn't get too much of a big build-up, did it? Everybody that's been previewing this game has said, oh, right, it's New Zealand-Slovakia, and nobody was particularly looking forward to it. So we're hoping for an opening goal early on in the game, something to get us all excited, something for us to talk about, but there really hasn't been a great deal. And the vuvuzelas really around the stadium are what are providing the atmosphere. If we didn't have those, and I know they upset some people, then this really would be. Well,
I'm with you. I'm with you, Jackie. We're in South Africa. The vuvuzela is part of their sporting traditions. The sportings, that's why we're here. So I'm on your side on this. If they're making the noise, at least it is a little bit of a noise, but I can't see why we should be getting upset. It's part and parcel of what is South Africa.
And I think we'll get used to it as well. I think at first it was just brand new as New Zealand take the throw in. Now here's Killen, edge of the penalty area, looks to try and get the cross in, back to Bertos. Bertos can't beat his man though. It's still Bertos and he's upended, but that'll be a throw in to New Zealand. There's just no urgency about this game, is there? The ball goes out for a throw-in, and you don't think it's... I mean, I'm just clutching at straw slightly here. You don't think it's anything to do with the altitude, do you? That the fitness levels...
Well, I mean, you can never rule that out. They've obviously trained for a little bit here, so you can say that by now, a number of days, they should be used to it. But there is no pace to the game at all.
Now here's Hamšík, plays the ball down his near left-hand side to Vladimir Weiss, who's switched wings. Still Weiss, slips the ball in towards Hamšík, into the penalty area. Hamšík tries to go on towards the far post, wide of the right-hand post.
See what he was trying to do there. Didn't get enough swerve on it, but at least there we'll have a go for goal. There's a little bit of pace to that movement, and there's nothing else to say but keep repeating yourself. The game needs to speed up, and you'll do that by moving the ball quicker, by being sharper. But doesn't look as if that is likely to happen at all at the moment. It really is a poor game, this.
Our journey up here was far more entertaining, wasn't it? Bearing in mind nothing happened for 4.5 hours. Now here's Sištek, plays the ball forwards for Slovakia. There's Jędrysek, can't take the ball under control. The story of the game so far really has been dreadful. I'm hoping Ian Dennis is going to be cracking a few jokes in a minute. He's usually got a few up his sleeve. He's trying to think of a few now to try and entertain you for the rest of this half, because there is not a fat lot happening on the pitch. There's now Vitek picks up the ball, lays it off to Zabavnik on the far side. Cross comes in towards the penalty area. It's well dealt with though by New Zealand. The people thinking that they were going to disgrace themselves and get absolutely hammered. Well, they certainly haven't so far.
No, but I think that's part of it. That they've come out here, New Zealand, say, look, we don't want to get embarrassed. We want to, and they've set themselves up. They had these 3 at the back, but that soon becomes 5 at the back when they're out of possession. They're very, very well organised, to be fair to them. But that's what gets me about Slovakia. Slovakia are better. You can see just by looking that they're more talented footballers, but they're just doing nothing with the ball.
Well, let's see what they can do between now and the end of the first half. Otherwise, Ian Dennis might have to crack a few jokes.
Well, I hope it does improve, that is for sure. Thanks, Jackie. I was actually in Bratislava when the World Cup qualifying campaign began. They opened up with a victory against Northern Ireland, and if you are listening in Northern Ireland, or indeed if Nigel Worthington's driving around somewhere in England on his summer holidays, you must be thinking, if only, what could have been, because Slovakia have been dreadfully poor. And this is a side that were possibly the most consistent team in an inconsistent qualifying group. But I know for a fact, with friends in Northern Ireland, they were thinking it could have been us, it could so have been us, and they only finished 7 points behind Slovakia. Had they rectified their away form, then Northern Ireland could have been here, but maybe they'll have to look forward to another major championship. But Slovakia certainly have done very little to suggest that they were worthy leaders of Group 3. That is for a fact, as the flag is up on that far side. It's 0-0. Slovakia in all royal blue. They're playing from right to left against the all whites of New Zealand on what is a windy day. If you're listening to the commentary and also watching it on BBC television, don't be deceived by the sunshine and the clear blue skies. That is the norm here in Rustenburg, and possibly as well, Graham, that wind is very, very strong. That could be a factor in the game.
Well, it may be. We're offering them every excuse, I think, in this way, but you're quite right when you say the sun's out, it looks lovely, but it's freezing. Wind is very
the
cold.
First day. I've got acclimatised to Rustenburg. I've been here since the start of June, and we're all told here it's going to be winter and whatever. This is what it's like in Rustenburg. Clear blue skies, the sun shines every day. Last week we were watching England train, it was about 25 degrees. When the sun drops at about 5 o'clock, then the temperature gets cold. But I've been wearing t-shirts most mornings, but today the jacket was on, and New Zealand will be very, very happy. 25 minutes played. Their opening game in the Confederations Cup last year, 27 minutes in, they were 4-0 down already against Spain in a hammering that they took against the Euro 2008 winners in the Confederations Cup. So this is very much their game plan. This suits New Zealand. And bearing in mind, we were all disappointed when England drew here in Rustenburg on Saturday. A draw, let's not forget, would be hailed as a major achievement for New Zealand. And they're more than holding their own against a very disappointing Slovakian side. 0-0. Graham Taylor.
It's very interesting what you say there, Ian. Just watching Slovakia have the ball, and I've seen them do it, so I took count. They had 14 passes in their own half of the pitch, never got beyond the halfway line. Everyone was a square pass or a backwards pass, and then they lost the ball. And that suits New Zealand very much. New Zealand are not pressing them, they just drop back off them and say, you have the ball. And that's exactly what Slovakia do. They have the ball, they keep it in their own half, don't look to go forward with it at all, and eventually they lose it.
New Zealand with Bertos on the right hand side. Bertos, New Zealand playing from left to right, rolls it back. This will be Reid, he'll play in a ball, it's curling, dropping into the penalty area. Fallon tried to get there, but it drops over his head, and in fact the referee has seen an infringement. Our South African official, Jerome Damon, and it'll be a free kick that Slovakia will take, and in no real hurry. They're missing Miroslav Karhan, their very experienced anchorman in midfield. He's out with an Achilles problem. He tends to try and set up a lot of their play with his distribution, but he's out, and Struber at the minute, who's just in front of the back four, hasn't been able to get possession. Hamšík has been very, very quiet. I was looking forward to seeing him after his outstanding season for Napoli in Serie A, as New Zealand pump a long ball forward, and then it's Durica who just rolls it off his chest and plays it up now towards Vladimir Weiss of Manchester City. Links up, and Weiss comes forward now midway through the New Zealand half. I thought he was going to shape to shoot there. He plays a short ball, gets it back from Jędrzejczyk into the penalty area, just wide with a shot. First real bit of incision, first bit of creativity. Weiss is at the heart of it, and Jędrzejczyk's right-footed shot was just wide. 0-0.
Quite right. First bit of quick play, short passing, 1-2s, opened up, shooting possibility, just wide. But that's the first indication that in fact Slovakia have shown that when they do play like that, when they do sharpen up their play, they can be a dangerous side. And you're quite right, Weiss was at the heart of all of those movements.
Well, he went on loan to Bolton, but they certainly, I think it was actually in Bratislava when Northern Ireland were there, and there were some scouts from Manchester City and Blackburn and I think Everton as well, and he played for the under-21s, and from memory I think it was against Belgium, and the scouts all said he scored a cracking goal, and he's been one just to watch, and he'll no doubt be looking to try and make more of an impression. He needs to play regular football at his stage of his career, but certainly it was he who we can be grateful for that little bit of an opportunity in what has been a soporific contest so far. We're almost approaching the half hour. 5 Live Sport, don't forget, should be a much better game in Port Elizabeth from 3 o'clock. Ivory Coast against Portugal, and then we have our first sight of Brazil. Dunga's Brazil against North Korea from Johannesburg later on this evening, and the first day of Royal Ascot, and we will be crossing to Cornelius Lycett at half-time here in Rustenburg. Slovakia with Hamšík to take the free kick. It's deep, it's headed away by Fallon, and it'll drop behind from the white shirts of from New Zealand. It's nearly said Northern Ireland, that was wishful thinking. It'll be a corner kick to Slovakia, and the wind blowing into the faces of those the New Zealand defenders as Slovakia. Corner flag taking a real buffeting. In it comes now, and the goalkeeper was nowhere, was he?
Yeah.
Mark Paston really flapped at that one. Goal kick.
As it happened, it came in with a little bit of pace on, and fortunately for Paston, he put off, I think it was the Vitek, who looked at if he could go in and get the ball, but Vitek drew out of it when he saw Paston coming, but he's a little bit fortunate there. Well,
he's only playing because Glenn Moss, who would have been in goal, was sent off in the dead rubber qualifying match against Fiji. Actually had a 4-match ban for swearing at the referee, and he'll miss the first 2 games of this World Cup here in South Africa. For New Zealand, their first World Cup final since 1982, and our friends north of the border, I'm sure, will have happy memories of that game in Malaga when they beat New Zealand by 5-2, although there was a scare when Scotland were leading 3-0 and the Kiwis fought it back. They got it to 3-2, but then New Zealand went on to ram in a couple of more goals. Certainly wasn't a happy tournament for New Zealand. My memories as a school child was one of the goals from Zico. I think he scored in a 4-0 victory against New Zealand, and they also lost to Russia as well by 3-0. Here, though, they have had an opportunity with Killen, who plays for Middlesbrough, of course. So there are a few familiar faces who you may see in the Premier League or indeed the Football League. His header was straight at the goalkeeper Muka, but it's there hasn't really been too much to get excited about here in Rustenburg. 5 Live Sport, your World Cup station. As across the back, it's Durica to Skirtle. Came back for, as Jackie says, that lengthy injury. He was an unused substitute against Hull City on the last day of the season. And then he had another scare with an ankle problem in the warm-up game against Costa Rica. As they spread the ball across the back, I expected more of Slovakia. When I saw them in that qualifying game against Northern Ireland, the full-backs pushed on. They tried to attack at every opportunity. It's almost as if they're being too cautious. They don't want to be caught out against New Zealand, but New Zealand, who are being billed as the worst team in this World Cup, they expected an onslaught. I was speaking to one of their coaching staff ahead of the game, and he was thinking the first 15 minutes Slovakia are going to really come at them, and it just hasn't materialised. And as a result, you can't help but feel that Slovakia have maybe lost a little bit of initiative, and as another result, New Zealand growing confidence.
Well, you're absolutely right there. I mean, the approach by Slovakia, as it has been with a number of teams in these group games, particularly the first group games, has been, we don't want to lose this game, so we'll hold on pretty well to what we've got and probably, get some chances later.
Here's Killen. If Middlesbrough shoots slow, did it take a deflection? No, it'll be a goal kick. Well, Slovakia were targeting second spot behind the Italians, world champions, but on the evidence of this first 32 minutes, I think Paraguay and Italy will be progressing from Group F. It has been a very, very cautious start from the Slovaks, much to the disappointment of their supporters who are on the far side. We're in the covered stand of this bowl-like stadium. The rest is an opened, 2-tiered stadium with the athletics track that runs around it. This is a cantilever roof that protects us from the elements with a strong wind on a cold day in the northwest province of South Africa, as New Zealand turn and go back with Tommy Smith of Ipswich Town. Back to Paston, complete miss kick by the former Bradford City goalkeeper. Opportunity here for Slovakia, but it was Tommy Smith who recovered and closed him down. What an error by the goalkeeper. Complete fresh air shot. And if only Vitek could have taken advantage. He was lucky, the goalkeeper, that the angle was so acute.
That was some mistake. You're just showing a show. He completely just gets his little toe on the end of the ball and really misses it. That would have been it would have been another goalkeeping incident that would be talked about forever.
Certainly would have been. It was a corner kick, which the ball moves in the air, headed back in by Hamšík, headed away then by Viselic. It's still in the penalty area with Slovakia, as Durica, almost falling and then stumbles over down by the byline, loses out to Rory Fallon. And Rory Fallon, with his white shirt really rippling as he runs into that strong wind blowing in his face, as Czech wants to take this throw in quickly. Slovakia looking to try and up the ante a little bit in terms of momentum. Czech then will take another throw on the left-hand side for Slovakia, all in royal blue, playing from right to left. 33, nearly 34 minutes played, no goals. Of a game where chances have certainly been at a premium. And what is it about that end? Because that was the end where Robert Green, of course, made that error. And let's not forget that he did redeem himself in the second half from Altidore. But you certainly couldn't have blamed the ball for that one, could you?
No,
because
he got
it was
it all wrong.
complete
miss. Well, it wasn't complete, just, as I say, got his toe end to it.
This is Weiss. Switch flanks to the left-hand side. Weiss on it, cutting in onto his right foot into the penalty area. Then Viselic will bring the ball away for New Zealand to Fallon. Holds it up, plays it inside to Killen. Killen's first control let him down. And then another mistake by Slovakia enables New Zealand to win it back with Lockhead. In this system of 3-4-3, error-strewn passage of play by both sides. New Zealand couldn't hang on to possession. Shot comes in from long range, and it was from Vitek. It was left-footed, it was pulled wide. But with these balls, you're worth shooting from long range, aren't you?
Well, also, I think they've just realised, or instructions have come from the coach, that they have this very big wind behind them, and really they ought to be taking full advantage. I think, if it stays like this till half-time, you will see New Zealand in the second half make full use of the wind, which is coming right down the pitch.
What was interesting with that ball, it was struck, 25 yards out. There's been a lot of talk about these balls, hasn't there? But that one didn't rise. You've seen a lot of them just go up and up and up, but that one kept at a true level. As the back pass, this time from Tommy Smith from Ipswich, and this time Paston does manage to clear the ball away downfield. He once had a spell at Bradford City on loan, the New Zealand goalkeeper, as Fallon does well to hold on to the ball. Fallon of Plymouth Argyle, out towards Lockhead on that far side. The former Fulham player, Elliott, with his ginger hair, plays it long into the penalty area, and that was a good header back by Czech under pressure, because Killen was putting him under pressure, and Mucker managed to gather that one safely, and now it's with Skirtle to bring the ball away. 0-0, and here's Graham Taylor.
Yeah, a game that really could send you to sleep if it wasn't so cold here, and so we ought to be thankful for the win, because it has been a very poor game. The group games, as I said earlier, not usually sort of all that exciting, particularly this first round, but this is the poorest game I've witnessed. I've only missed seeing two of the games, either live or on television, but certainly this is a very, very poor game if you're talking about a World Cup.
Well, I'm not doing too many commentaries because involved with Mike Ingham MBE. He gave me the title of Dennis the Menace, so I'll give him his proper title. But when I did it in Germany 4 years ago, I think it took me 7 games to get off the mark before I actually commentated on a goal. So I'm not surprised that this game is as bad as it is, because that really sums up my World Cup story so far, continuing from Germany 4 years ago. The only good thing is that the truce remains intact between the pair of us. That's a good thing, as Killen. Yeah. This is Fallon for New Zealand. Back to Schmelz. Schmelz will shoot. It's the side netting. That was good play by New Zealand. Yeah. I think New Zealand, they can really take this game to Slovakia. From what we've seen, they've got nothing to be afraid of whatsoever.
No, and there was a little bit of combination play, which we haven't seen too much from New Zealand. We've not seen a lot of that. There's some little combination play, and they're very unfortunate. At one stage, I thought it had got it in, because, when you hit the side net and you see all the net sort of ruffle, and I just wondered if it had got in, but it wasn't the case.
What, in Germany, I actually did a penalty shootout, and I think it was Switzerland. It was actually a worse game than this, so we can be thankful for that. It was dubbed one of the worst games in World Cup history in Cologne. Went to a penalty shootout, 0-0, and I actually got the team who didn't score any of the penalty shootouts either. That's how jinxed I was. But anyway, as long as Graham and I are continuing to talk, that's the main thing. This is
I'll say something now.
This is Hamšík towards Vitek. Vitek's cross is charged down by Elliott. New Zealand actually have one of the oldest midfields in this World Cup here in South Africa. We have 7 minutes to half time. There are no goals, but Slovakia, we should be encouraged that there have been opportunities at either end in the last 5 minutes or so. Crumb of comfort. Slovakia with a corner on the right hand side. Durica heads it back into the 6-yard area. The goalkeeper again missed it. What was he doing? It bounced straight past him, and thankfully I think it was Ryan Nelson who was alert and managed to clear the ball away. Jędrzejczyk plays a square ball. Now the fullbacks push on. Cross comes in from the right hand side. Downward header by Hamšík, and Paston manages to gather it, but he will be filling his defenders with no confidence whatsoever.
Well, it was amazing, wasn't it? There was a header, it went to the side of him, and it was like Paston thought, well, it's not at me, so I don't save those, and it was just past him, and it could easily have cost a goal.
Well, which
I think would be good to see.
It would be, although not for Slovakia. If Slovakia went 1-0 up, I think that the game, if from a neutral's point of view, we need New Zealand to score, don't we? And then we need, because Slovakia, this was billed as such a crucial match that 3 points were vital for, well, I suppose both sides. Let's give New Zealand a chance. That, for both sides, if they're to have any hope of coming out of this group, they had to get 3 points in this opening match before they take on Paraguay or Italy. And then to watch the turgid fare that we've had to sit through for this 40 minutes, that you can only hope that they start to release the shackles in the second period. But the draw would be great for New Zealand. We mentioned that record with Mark Chapman ahead of game, where outside of the Oceanic region, 11 games, 11 defeats, only 4 goals scored, 36 goals conceded. This is a side that they may well do well at cricket and obviously rugby union and indeed rugby league, but when it comes to football, they're not used to the other sports, and they don't have that weight of expectation that their other sports stars do.
But the chances now, Ian, a corner. I still say this is where the biggest threat will come.
Well, I think they deserved it. I think they've shown more ambition.
Definitely.
In a poor game, yeah.
Definitely disappointed me, Slovakia, because I expected far more from them. We came with an expectancy of New Zealand.
Elliott with a corner for New Zealand. Far side the right, the header directed on by Tommy Smith. Knocked back in by Reid, charged down for another corner for New Zealand. It would be fantastic for New Zealand to take the lead, certainly for their tiny population. It'll have just gone past midnight if they're watching down under, staying up late and hoping that they can score. As the cross comes in from Bertos, it was a poor delivery, didn't beat the first man at the near post, and now Slovakia with the all royal blue will break, and it's Weiss overruns the ball. A sliding Elliott tangles, then loses out. Weiss back towards Hamšík. This is Struber along the ground. Jędrzejczyk inside the centre circle, options ahead of him. One of them comes short. This is Šešťák, and then Jędrzejczyk was caught by Lockhead, and that will be a free kick to Slovakia as we approach 3.5 minutes towards half time, and the first serious foul results in the first yellow card. I didn't think the referee really needed to do that.
Well, I don't think, the referee had a good view of the foul from the word go. Never went to his pocket at all, didn't do anything. I can't quite see who the foul was against.
Lockhead.
The Slovakian player.
Oh, Jędrzejczyk, I think
it was.
Who's
rolling all over the place, holding his ankle. And at that time, the referee then decides to get out the yellow card. The player now gets up and walks away.
So Slovakia have this dangerous free kick. It's just over 25 yards out from goal. It's right of centre. Slovakia playing from right to left. And the shot is pulled square towards Hamšík. Strikes it first time. Turned over by the goalkeeper. Hitting with his right foot did Hamšík. Paston saw it all the way. Two hands turned over the crossbar for a corner. It was dipping as well.
Yeah, had to knock it over straight at him.
So we've seen the good, we've seen the bad, and at times we've seen the ugly from the goalkeeper. That was the good from Paston, the New Zealand goalkeeper. 0-0. It's an away swinging corner this time. Headed away by Reid, looking to retrieve that ball, though, as Slovakia ahead of Bertos, and then it's across the back And this is Jędruszek who collects the ball and eventually goes all the way back to Struber. And the ball goes out of play for a Slovakia throw. At half-time, we will be looking ahead to that game, which should be a little bit more enticing in Port Elizabeth from 3. Ivory Coast against Portugal. Group G, of course, will be up and running with both games today, followed this evening by Brazil and North Korea. Group F was last night in the torrential rain in Cape Town, where Italy salvaged a draw against Paraguay. We'll also be crossing to Royal Ascot the first day, and there will be races throughout, as well as our World Cup coverage. The first race for you, the Queen Anne Stakes, at 2:30. But we'll get the thoughts of Cornelius Lysett during the half-time interval here in Rustenburg. 0-0 between New Zealand and Slovakia, and worth reiterating that should it stay like this, this would be a very, very good result for New Zealand. It would be certainly one that they would hail as a success for their morning papers, or whenever they do file their copy after the game. Did you see the headline in the New York Post, by the way, the other day after the England game? USA wins 1-1. They certainly took full advantage of that draw here in Rustenburg. 40 seconds to go to the break. And this is Struber with a free kick into the New Zealand penalty area. The goalkeeper came a long way. Gain didn't get there, and it came off a touch from New Zealand. It's gone behind for a corner.
Yeah, I think when Paston started to come, he could have stopped, and then he has eventually come all the way through.
Corner taken quickly out to Zabavnik on the right hand side, back out towards that right side once more as Weiss tries to work his magic back towards Zabavnik, right corner of the penalty area, onto his left foot, crosses deep and too deep, and the ball zips away off the lush surface and out for a goal kick, and there will only be 1 minute of an additional time. You'll be pleased about that, won't you?
I'm waiting for the Vuvuzelas to sort of go off.
The what? The Vuvuzelas?
Yeah, the Vuvuzelas. Actually, when they announced the minute, I thought, well, they'll increase, and we'll at least get something to keep us warm.
I remember being in Ghana 2 years ago, and they were playing Nigeria, and I think it was a quarter-final game, and Nigeria were winning. I mean, it's a big derby game between Ghana and Nigeria. Ghana equalised just before half-time, and would you believe it, in the stadium in Accra, the noise actually intensified throughout the half-time interval, and the fans were dancing, and they were whipped up to fever pitch. And that was deafening. So they don't tend to turn them off at half-time, Graham, from my experience.
I don't mind that, honestly and truthfully. I'm not one of these that complain about. You're in another country. We're fortunate to be here, not only to see a World Cup tournament, but to get opportunity to see another country that we don't get the chance to, and see what their traditions are. No problems with it at all.
Well, that's half-time. You'll be pleased about that. You haven't missed a great deal. Slovakia 0, New Zealand 0. And are you going to take one home, by the way, a Vuvuzela?
Oh, I shall take 5 or 6.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I'd try if I can sort of really get them done. Really.
Tell you what you could do. Here's a marketing ploy. Why don't you start selling them in the Watford Club shop? Because I'm being serious here. They sound, when they're being played, they sound like hornets.
I'll tell you this. I hope you take it away. We were up in the Joburg walking, and there was a lady with a Vuvuzela, and she looked and she said, "Would you like to blow my Vuvuzela?" Now, what do you say to that? I just said, "Yes, thank you," and did it. She was very good, had a lot of fun.
Well, that's Graham Taylor here in Rustenburg. It's Slovakia 0, New Zealand 0.
We're just about to kick off, and the wind is absolutely howling around this stadium. We're underneath the only roof, the cantilever roof of the main stand, but it really is very, very cold, and Graham Taylor and I really regretting not having brought our thermals and our gloves and our hats and our scarves, everything that's sitting back in our room in Johannesburg as the whistle blows for the start of the second half. 0-0 here in Rustenburg, as New Zealand, who did really well in that first half, had a couple of decent opportunities, more than held their own, attacking the goal away to our left, all in white, and Slovakia are all in blue, as They are in possession over the far side with Eric Jendrisek. Puts the ball out of play so I can run through the two sides. Mark Paston in goal for New Zealand. He had a very difficult time in the first half. Looked rather shaky. With three at the back, Winston Reid, Ryan Nelson and Tommy Smith. A midfield from right to left of Leo Bertos, Ivan Viselic, Simon Elliott and Tony Lockhead, with Chris Killen, Rory Fallon and Shane Smeltz up front. For Slovakia, Jan Muka, the new Everton goalkeeper, in goal. A back four of Zubavnik, Skirtle, Durica and Czech. A midfield of Sturba, Weiss, Seshtak and Hamšík, with Jendrisek and Vitek up front. So, Graham Taylor, I would have thought that Ricky Herbert, the New Zealand manager, would have been really happy with his players at half-time and would have told them to hold their nerve and believe in themselves.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I mean, as much as we talk about the quality of the game, New Zealand will be very happy here. They are the underdogs of this tournament. And here they are, 0-0 at half-time. They're now playing the second half with a bitingly cold wind, but it is right behind them and it's a strong one. And I would expect to see them get the ball forward, be quite direct and get it in there.
As the ball played forward for Slovakia, intercepted though by New Zealand. Picked up by the star player, Marek Hamšík, who's been linked with a move to the Premier League, but it looks as though he's going to be staying at Napoli. Says he'll be signing a new contract in the next few days. As Weiss gets a cross in, it comes off the legs of Lockhead, and that's a corner in the early stages of the second half to Slovakia.
Just early, and I thought they, if they get it forward and get it into Slovakia, then and try and put pressure on them that way, I think that's likely what we'll see this second half, but we'll just have to wait.
So, corner to Slovakia, all in blue on this near side, the Slovakia right. The pitch is bathed in sunshine, apart from the shadow cast by the giant floodlight pylon away to our left. And the corner comes in, Jendrisek from the right-hand side, and the referee has spotted an infringement, and that'll be a free kick to New Zealand. Now, we've seen a few goalkeeping mistakes so far in this World Cup. A couple of absolute howlers, of course, we know all about those. And Mark Paston looked far from confident, Graham, in the first half, the New Zealand goalkeeper. We said that he hadn't played football for 6.5 months because he'd broken his leg. How difficult will that be for him? How much will that be playing on his mind?
Well, when I read and heard about it, not to have had a competitive game, that's the little bit that I wrote. But it's unusual, isn't it? I mean, as much as all of the training that you do for the goalkeeper, fine. But if you're not in that competitive situation, then it must be very difficult.
Struber in possession. He's upended in the middle of the field. Takes a free kick quickly from the wrong place, but the referee allows play to continue as he plays the ball forwards, and it's out of play just in front of us. Vitek couldn't get on the end of it, and that'll be a throw-in to New Zealand. We await the first goal in this stadium, the Royal Bafokeng Stadium in the northwest province of South Africa. It really is chilly, and it feels so different to the way it looks. It looks absolutely magnificent, but the way the flags are fluttering, the three of them, the FIFA, the New Zealand and the Slovakia flags on the stand right in front of us, in front of the Pilansberg Mountains, are telling a tale of just how nippy and difficult it is. It's a bit like the Britannia Stadium in August, isn't it? It looks sunny enough, but it's still blooming freezing.
Just watching Slovakia again, it doesn't look as if anything being said. Look, New Zealand are dropping off them. They've got the ball in their own half. This was the 7th or 8th time they've put it. They checked back with it. They have really disappointed me. They've surprised me and disappointed me.
Here's Seshtak on the right-hand side. Crosses into the centre, the header, and that's the opening goal. And it's Slovakia's first ever goal in World Cup history. Robert Vitek with a header from Seshtak's cross. And the way the Slovakians are celebrating tells you they've just made history. It's New Zealand 0, Slovakia 1.
Well, Slovakia have gone and done exactly what I thought New Zealand would do. They put an early cross in. I think it probably surprised New Zealand. I think more than anything else, New Zealand were probably expecting another pass. All of a sudden, the cross came in, met by Vitek, far corner, good header, firm header, put past the keeper. It's 1-0 to Slovakia.
Well, it's the first really decent delivery we've seen as Vitek got in front of his marker, Winston Reid. Just a yard or so, but it was plenty, and it was an excellent downward header. Mark Paston had absolutely no chance as it bounced in front of him and into the far corner of the net. And it'll be really interesting to see how New Zealand react to this.
Honestly, Jackie, I think they were just so surprised that Slovakia crossed the ball. You know, it was out there. I don't think they were prepared for it. I think they were just expecting another pass which had been happening. And then when the ball was put in, it was just put in. It wasn't aimed at anybody. It was just put in as a cross. New Zealand didn't deal with it, and they've conceded.
Passing with a long ball forwards for New Zealand, who are attacking the goal away to our left. Very interesting to see how they react to that setback. They had more than held their own in the first half. They'd had some decent chances as well. Chris Killen with the best of them. But now they've gone a goal behind, and they have a free kick 15 yards or so inside the Slovakia half. It's Simon Elliott, the 36-year-old former Fulham midfielder, to take it just by the shadow of the solitary floodlight pylon that's shadowing the pitch, as his shorts and shirt flutter in the strong wind. Takes a free kick right-footed into the penalty area. It's headed away as Bertos goes across to chase, and it'll be a throw-in to New Zealand over the far side, which Bertos will take, almost level with the 18-yard box on the New Zealand right. Bertos takes it into the penalty area as Reid tried to turn away from his defender Vitek as he went down, but that'll be a goal kick.
Very interested to see what effect this does have on the New Zealand side, as you mentioned earlier, because they would have gone in at half time pleased, still being at 0-0, because this is a big competition for them, and as we said, they're looked upon very much as the underdogs. And then we've just got a little replay of the goal, completely unmarked. I mean, they're really caught out there, but how will they react?
And there may just be a question mark of offside. We didn't get a decent replay of that, but Muka clears away for Slovakia up towards the halfway line. 1-0 Slovakia lead in the Royal Bafokeng Stadium in Rustenburg. Plenty more action to come later on today on 5 Live, of course, as we're hearing at half-time. Portugal versus the Ivory Coast, which will be a really fascinating game at 3 o'clock live from Port Elizabeth. And then later on, the other Group G match, Brazil, the first time we'll have seen them in this tournament, against North Korea, who not too many people know a great deal about. So that'll be a fascinating match for a different reason, as Elliott's taken a bit of a whack to his foot. And that's one that looks rather painful, if not intentional, as the boot came in from Struber.
No, it wasn't. I think, it's the initial reaction. Whatever people say, and sometimes we all pass comment, they get up and then they run away, but sometimes you can get caught and it really is very painful. At 30 seconds it really does hurt, and then off you go. And sometimes we're a little bit unfair to some players that do go down, and then, sort of a minute or so later they get up and run away.
Winston Reid with the ball forwards towards his near left-hand side, as Lockhead takes a throw-in, gets it back from Visilic. Lockhead is muscled out of it as Weiss brings the ball away for Slovakia. Little untidy pattern of play, but good play by the youngster Weiss. Now here's Seshtak. Good feet from him. Seshtak gets away from two players. It's still Seshtak, but he runs into trouble and will be dealt with by Ryan Nelson. Up towards the halfway line, and a foul by Struber. New Zealand with a chance to try and get themselves back into this game. Elliott to take the free kick quickly over towards the far side. And you just wonder where the goal is going to come from. They have a three-pronged attack of Shane Smeltz even, Rory Fallon of Plymouth, and Chris Killen of Middlesbrough, formerly of Hibs and Oldham. He started his career at Manchester City. But there are a few goals between them, although Rory Fallon's had a really torrid time since scoring the winner against Bahrain in the second leg of the playoff back in November. He only managed to score 3 goals for his club Plymouth as they slipped out of the Championship.
Yeah, it is one of the things. They're down there. One of the reasons, obviously, they find goals hard to come by. But it'll be very interesting. Sturper there was just cautioned by the referee for committing a foul. So I don't know, it's the second or third yellow card now, is that?
It's the second. Lockhead for New Zealand was booked in the first half. And the sound of the vuvuzelas is constantly there. I wonder whether people back home are getting used to hearing it in the background. I think so far today they wouldn't have heard too much else, really, apart from the vuvuzelas. Although we're looking at a pocket of Slovakian supporters over the far side who are bouncing up and down with their red, white and blue flags. There's a big England one over that far side as well. South Africa 2010. As the ball's cleared away by Jan Muka over the halfway line. 1-0 to Slovakia as Sestak attempted to handball that. It's a good job he didn't make contact, otherwise that would have been a certain yellow card, just like we saw in the Algeria game when their striker Ghazal managed to get himself sent off soon after coming on. Did you watch that game?
I saw it. I mean, it was silly, wasn't it? I just don't think he could have realised what he was doing, and yet, you know, in he comes, deliberate handball, already being cautioned, bye-bye, go back into the dressing room.
Now the ball's shipped forwards towards Rory Fallon. He chested it down, put it straight into the space as it was cleared away by Zabavnik. And now the onus on New Zealand to try and pick up their first ever World Cup point. 28 years ago, they were beaten in all 3 games. The only goals they've scored in their World Cup history were 2 against Scotland, as Ian mentioned, when they were 3-0 down and brought it back to 3-2 before Scotland went on to comfortably win the game. But they're still looking for their first goal of this tournament. They're attacking the goal away to our left and passing the ball around the back 3 as now it's with Winston Reid over the far side, who actually played under-21 football for Denmark, the country he moved to when he was a youngster. Only recently earned his first New Zealand cap. The same is to be said for Tommy Smith, the Ipswich Town player. He was actually born in Macclesfield, moved to New Zealand at a young age, and then an Ipswich Town scout on holiday spotted him over there and brought him over to the academy. This is a really strong run by Vladimir Weiss, but he's just overrun it. Elliott was there to cover anyway, but Paston this time comfortably and confidently coming out to the edge of his 18-yard box to smother the ball.
Yes, good goalkeeping. He read it very well. He timed his dive at the feet of Weiss very well and came out to comfort. It was a good piece of goalkeeping.
Well, he needed that. He hasn't had too many actual saves to make that I can think of from the first half. There are a couple of efforts from Slovakia who are very sluggish. Very, very poor first half from them. We had expected a lot better, but they have got the goal. The only goal so far of the game scored by Robert Vitek 6 minutes into this second half as the ball's overplayed and had play for a goal kick to Slovakia.
Yeah. Well, I don't know whether it's anything down on the pitch, whether it is to win, but I really expected New Zealand to be a little bit more direct than they have been. I thought they would get the ball forward, but it seems to me that they may be more concerned of the ball running away from them, and they've actually fallen into a similar pattern as Slovakia did when they were against the wind. They've played it much shorter than I expected New Zealand to do. At the present time, they're not really disturbing in any shape or form the Slovakian defenders.
New Zealand in possession, but they haven't hurt Slovakia at all as they have the ball over on the far side. I can't underestimate just how much the wind is blowing around the stadium. Wonder what effect it's having on the players. And just as I say that, the ball's overhit and it's gone straight behind for a goal kick.
That's right. I know that one was out of play and was overhit, and I thought they would be prepared to risk 1 or 2 of those, because I just think that putting that kind of pressure onto the Slovakian defence, I don't think they'll handle that all that well, to tell you the truth. I think if you get it into your front men a little bit earlier for New Zealand, I'm not so certain Slovakia would handle that all that well.
Just had a shot on our screens of Ricky Herbert, the New Zealand manager, who Mark Chapman was saying before the game thinks could be moving to England. He combines his role with a full-time job with Wellington Phoenix, who are the only New Zealand side to be playing in the Australian A-League. And he actually missed the draw in Cape Town for the World Cup because he had a game with his club side. There's Slovakia coming forwards, the ball in towards Vitek. He's now back with Struber in the midfield, who's on a yellow card. Now here's Vladimir Weiss, the right winger with a shaven head, moving forwards with purpose. He's surrounded by 3 white-shirted players and he goes down and he's screaming at the referee. He wanted a free kick for that, but play on, says the ref. What are you expecting now from the rest of the game, Graham?
Well, I think that I don't think Slovakia will go out, and really push forward to get a second goal. If a second one comes, then they'll just take it. So I think we're likely to see a slow game. As I said, without repeating myself, New Zealand are keeping the ball better than they did in the first half, but they're going nowhere with it. And so I think we'll see a lot of that.
Now here's Chris Killen, tries to pass the ball forwards over the right-hand side towards Bertos, but it doesn't reach him. And now it is with Bertos on the far right-hand side. Leo Bertos, who's yet to score for his country, the winger. Very few goals, in fact, throughout this New Zealand side. This player scored a lot of them. Shane Smelts. And now here's Bertos again over the far side. Elliott, who's seeing a lot of the ball. Back to Killen on the right-hand side. He has two Slovakian players around him. Now Visilic. Back to Elliott, who's forced back over to the halfway line. 1-0 still. Slovakia lead on 5 Live, your World Cup station. As we've played 15 minutes of the second half. Ryan Nelson, a familiar figure to Premier League supporters, the Blackburn captain, very highly thought of in England and by far the most famous player in New Zealand. I just wonder how the disparity might affect the rest of the squad, bearing in mind he must earn so much more, 10, 20 times more than anybody else in the side. Some of them are part-timers as New Zealand come forwards. Lockhead with a good cross, floated towards the far post. It just held up in the air, made it easy for the goalkeeper without any kind of pressure on him.
I think it can do that at club level when you're in there every day. But when you're selecting it at international level, I don't think that comes into it.
Now, Andy Barron, one of the substitutes, had to get permission from his employers because he works at Westpac Bank in Australia. They asked if he could take some time off to come and play at the World Cup, and some of his colleagues in the bank didn't even know that he actually played football, or soccer as they call it. One of the sub-goalkeepers, James Bannatyne, is a salesman for Puma. He'll be wearing a Nike shirt and playing with an Adidas football here, so he's had to take time off as well. So all that has to be taken into consideration when comparing the likes of New Zealand against Italy. Will be interesting, who they play on Sunday in the next match day in this group. And that's in Nelspruit, and then they face Paraguay and Polokwane, where I've just come from, next Thursday. But you would expect on this evidence, Graham, that it would be Italy and Paraguay fairly comfortably through.
Yeah. What's that game last night? You know, it was like another one, a first game in a group stage, ended up the 1-1, but you just can't see any of the two teams but those two going through.
Not too many people have been tipping Italy to retain their title. Can you see it?
I would never rule out that. I mean, I think it would be very difficult for them, but the Italians also, when it comes to tournaments, they have a good mentality.
Now here's Vitek on the right-hand side, crosses over the head of his teammate in the centre. It looked for a moment a really dangerous possession as Jędrzejczyk was there, but it was just too high above him, and the goalkeeper saw it all the way. Should have done better.
Yeah, but the thing about Slovakia, and they scored the goal from it, is that they have shown a willingness to put crosses in. They didn't show that at all in the first half. Now, whether that has been mentioned in the dressing room or not, I don't know. But in the first half, it was all passing in front of the opposition. And when you got into wide positions, there was a reluctance to cross the ball. That's what I think went some way to their opening goal. When they did cross it early, I think it took New Zealand a little bit by surprise. I really don't think they were expecting that cross to come in the manner that it did. And then their marking wasn't right. It was a very good header by Vitek to put Slovakia ahead.
Vitek just got in front of Winston Reid. Now there's a high ball over the top for Seshtak to chase. He takes it down well. He has two New Zealand defenders in front of him. It's still Seshtak. He needs some kind of support, and he gets it in the shape of Hamšík, and he fires first time over the bar from 20 yards. Head in hands. Should have done better.
Yeah, he came that. It was all held up for him, and you were just hoping that they would get a good quality strike on the ball, but wasn't the case, and well over the bar.
Expecting him afterwards to blame the ball, as most of the players have. I spoke to several of them after Algeria-Slovenia. They absolutely hate this football, which we've managed to not mention so far.
Well, we did say the football is one of the things that sometimes has got more mention than probably anything else at the moment.
Now Slovakia in possession, but another move breaks down, and despite the fact this hasn't exactly been a thriller of a game, there's still been a decent atmosphere created, not just by the sound of the vuvuzelas, but there have been plenty of South African fans inside this stadium making a noise, having a party, which is what this tournament has been all about. It's been fantastic to watch them in the streets, and so colourful, and huge smiles on faces. They're absolutely loving having the World Cup in South Africa.
Yeah, the atmosphere has been great, and you're quite right, Jackie, that the reception from the people here, they're friendly. They've been very, very, very good, very welcoming.
Couldn't agree more. All the staff that I've seen, they've just been fantastic, and they're making such an effort because there is a perception of South Africa throughout the rest of the world for various reasons, and they're determined that people go away with a good feeling about the place. That's a fantastic crossfield ball by Simon Elliott, well controlled by Leo Bertos, up against two defenders, and he wins a throw in on that far side, level with the penalty area, takes it quickly back to Viselic. He opts to go back to Reed inside his own half. New Zealand attacking the goal away to our left as the ball forwards towards Killen is then played first time out to the far side to Bertos, who loses his footing. Now under pressure from Hamsik. New Zealand retaining possession well enough, but they haven't really hurt Slovakia in the second half.
No, and I have to say it has surprised me, this. I really thought that, they've kept more possession of the ball in this half when the wind's in their favour, and they say, well, we can understand that, but I think sometimes to put that ball into those back defenders with the wind as it is could cause problems.
Now we're just hearing that Didier Drogba will be on the bench for this afternoon's match in Port Elizabeth against Portugal for the Ivory Coast. So there was some talk that he'd be able to start the match, that he'd been given permission to play with a cast, but Drogba is on the bench, and full commentary, I think it goes without saying surely, will be here on 5 Live from 3 o'clock, followed a little bit later on at 7:30 by Brazil versus North Korea. Hoping that we'll be back in time to watch those, Graham. There should be certainly the second one. That'll be absolutely fascinating.
Can't see us making the first one.
Not if the journey up here is anything to go by. 4.5 hours to do a 1.5 hour journey. We're not going to bang on about that, but it wasn't the best start to the day, shall we say, as we managed to get here before kick-off. New Zealand in plenty of possession, but they're not hurting Slovakia, who have a 1-goal lead. The only goal of the game so far in the 6th minute of the second half by Robert Vitek. A header from a very well-angled cross from Sestak. And now here's Hamsik, who we haven't seen a great deal of at all, as he's upended. Has he disappointed you in a way he's disappointed me?
Well, in terms of how, everything's been said about him, that, a future sort of great star, you can't see that in this performance. And it's the first live appearance I've seen him, so you have to be a little bit wary. But certainly, the present time, his performance hasn't matched what's been said about him.
We've reached the midway point of the second half. It's New Zealand 0, Slovakia 1. To take through to full time, here's Ian Dennis.
Thanks, Jackie. So New Zealand, just the 1 goal in it, and maybe had you said that to them ahead of the game, they would have possibly accepted that, because they know that, they're in a very tough group. And when you consider that a lot of their players are semi-professional, some, as Jackie say, are unattached, don't have a club, such as Mulligan and Elliott, the former Fulham player, they're still in this game as Elliott comes forward, and they're going to make a change very soon. It's another familiar name to anybody listening back in England, Chris Wood from West Bromwich Albion, who's a energetic, raw talent, but he's a striker, might pep up their forward line. But here's Struber coming forward for the blue of Slovakia. Sestak inside to Vitek. Vitek tries to roll it, and he was denied by the goalkeeper, and it rolls behind for a corner to Slovakia. That's the worry that New Zealand have, that Slovakia can hit them on the counter-attack.
Yeah, I think they were eventually just pushed out right at the death. Reed came across and defended well, but he's taking his time going for the corner, isn't he?
Yeah, I actually thought it came off the keeper's legs, but you're right, It was Reed who came across, and it was his knees that forced the ball out. So Weiss will take this corner kick. Slovakia in all royal blue, playing from left to right, leading by a 1-0. Through that goal 5 minutes after the restart. Weiss floats over the corner from the right-hand side. 2 New Zealand players both go for the same ball. It was Fallon and Reed, and it'll be a Slovakia throw on that far side there left, which Czech will take. Still, that substitution hasn't been made, as West Brom's Wood looks to come on into the field of play. I'll let you know a story as well about, it was an interesting tale about a Blackburn official who, would you believe, is helping out New Zealand. A guy called Matt Hockin. I'll tell you all about that when I get a break in play as well, because he's certainly had, or will have a busy summer, that is for sure. But watching on down there on the bench is Matt, and he, with his adopted New Zealand side, have a corner to defend, and it's rolled short and played back in to the feet of Weiss, over on that far side of the left, level with the penalty area. This is 5 Live Sports. Slovakia looking to increase their advantage in their opening game here in Group F, which would be absolutely vital if they are to have any hope of progressing in a group that consists Paraguay and Italy, who drew 1 apiece last night in Cape Town. There's a player down. It was Weiss that was just caught by Keelan.
Referee telling him to get up. And I will say this, that the refereeing, I think, has been very good. I think where the injured players are concerned, if you're saying that, and look, he's now signalled for either the stretcher or something to come on, and the player gets up. So he stops them coming on now. But he was very strong with the player there.
The South African referee. Let's play continue. And this is Weiss. He teed it up. It bobbles into the penalty area. Bounced its way towards Vitek. Cleared, though, by the New Zealand defence. 19 minutes remain. Slovakia lead by a 0-0. And now that change will be made. And Chris Wood of West Bromwich Albion is going to be replacing the number 10, who is Middlesbrough's Chris Killen. So Chris Killen, who had that early chance, makes way for the 18-year-old who has a chance to make a name for himself. Vladimir Weiss, the youngest coach here in the World Cup, has certainly made a name for himself. His place is secure as far as the history is concerned for Slovakian football. He scored the first goal after the independence, after the Velvet divorce of 93. He, as coach, has taken them to their first World Cup finals, and it's his team that lead by a 0-0. Vladimir Weiss, who Celtic fans will not need reminding, he was the coach of Art Media Bratislava when they hammered them 5-0 2 or 3 years ago in a Champions League qualifier. New Zealand looking for an equaliser with Paston. Had spells at Bradford and Walsall in the past of his career a few years ago. Out towards Ipswich Town's Tommy Smith, the defender, floats the ball up. Fallon heads it back. This is Smelts, takes it early, shoots low, blocked, comes out to Rory Fallon, looks to get away from the sliding challenge. The Slovakian player has stayed down, Zabavnik. Lockhead joins the attack on the left-hand side. Lockhead's crossed into the penalty area. And in the end, it was Cech who had time. The ball got stuck underneath his feet, and eventually it's been cleared away by Jędrzejczyk over on that far side. And this time Tommy Smith will deal with this ball just over the halfway line as New Zealand venture forward. Elliott plays the ball forward. This is Smelts. Elliott's continuing his run as Smelts drops back midway through the Slovakian half. Slovakia still lead by a 0-0. And the ball by Vitalic is steered out towards that right-hand side. In comes the cross. Bounces over quite high on the chest of Smelts, and then eventually out for a goal kick. And that's one thing that I've noticed, whether it be on the TV watching here or indeed being at grounds, the bounce of these balls is very, very unpredictable and very high.
Yeah. It is very high, and people say, well, you should be getting used to it. I tell you what, it's very difficult to get used to a real bouncing ball because it's bouncing higher than your head, sometimes substantially higher. So what can you do about it?
What they do, these balls as well, they move very late. They swerve right at the last moment. In England's training session that I watched, which is only about 10-15 minutes away from here, at their Swish complex in Rustenburg, they've been working on the balls. But for the next 2 matches, England will not be playing at altitude. We're, 4,900 feet above sea level here in Rustenburg. For the next 2 games, in Cape Town against Algeria for England on Friday, and then the final match against Slovenia in Port Elizabeth. They're both, of course, at sea level. And we will be hearing from England's Glenn Johnson, who's been speaking to Mike Ingham at the end of this game on 5 Live. As Sheshtak gets round the back of Lockhead, pulls it back. Good interception by Nelson, but the clearance then falls towards Hamšík. Hamšík on this right-hand side. Slovakia playing from left to right, and they're all royal blue, leading by a 0-0. 5 Live here in Rustenburg. Weiss teases his marker, slips the ball in towards Zabavnik. The ball runs into the penalty area, and Paston will gather. Graham Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at that. What surprised me about New Zealand, and I know I keep going on, if you're going to come back into this game, instead of being satisfied just with a 1-0 defeat and thinking that's okay, you know, this is probably the best opponents you can get some points from. And I just think that they do need to get the ball forward. Yes, they've kept possession of the ball, but there's been no end product to it at all. I think they need to get the ball forward quicker and earlier than what they have been doing, and I think it will up the tempo of their game.
And also, as well, this is not only an opportunity to get 3 points on the board, but also a chance to rack up the goals, because New Zealand could be taken apart by somebody like Italy or Paraguay, and the goal difference could be a key factor.
Very much, but I mean, it could be embarrassing the next 2 games, and certainly against Italy will be very, very difficult for them.
Well, Slovakia are coming forward once more, leading by a 0-0, and the shot goes across the face of goal from Jędrzejczyk. Certainly when that question was put to Jamie Carragher the other day about, could that have been an opportunity, or could it be an opportunity against Algeria to rack up the goals, Jamie Carragher was saying, let's just get the win, first of all, against Algeria. So that's the commentary to look forward to on Friday, England's next match. And looking ahead to that game, the media bubble will certainly be worth a listen to tonight at 9:45, presented by Ian McGarry with Brian Woolnough. Sean Custis and Henry Winter, who are based in Sun City, will be joining that programme as we look ahead to that game for England. But next up after this match is the game, certainly as Mike said, in fact, of one of the group stages. It's in Port Elizabeth, it's Ivory Coast against Portugal, and Mike Sewell has the team news.
And Didier Drogba does not start this game. We thought he might do, given that the Ivory Coast had put forward this protective cast he was going to wear for them to check out. They cleared him for that, but clearly Sven-Göran Eriksson isn't 100% certain that he can start the game, so he's on the bench. Gervinho will start, as will Aruna Dindan. There are 3 Premier League players in there: Aboué, Kolo Touré, the captain, and Salomon Kalou, also of Chelsea. As for Portugal, Ronaldo will play as expected. 3 Premier League players in their lineup as well: Ferreira, Carvalho and Deco, and a familiar face in Pedro Mendes will anchor the midfield for Portugal.
Thanks, Mike. Mike Sewell, Robbie Savage and Alan Green, your commentary team from 3 in Port Elizabeth. Before that, we'll have the Queen Anne Stakes from the first day of Royal Ascot at 2:30 on 5 Live. And don't forget, Wimbledon starts next week as well, but we'll cram it in, as we always do here on 5 Live, as Slovakia lead by 1-0, and they have a corner kick on the right-hand side. Hamšík looks to take it. He waits. This will be an away swinger. New Zealand have everybody back in the all-white for New Zealand. The all-whites have some defending to do as it's the away swinger now, headed up in the air, drops back towards Weiss, plays it out towards Hamšík on this near side, and Wood will let it roll out of play for a goal kick for New Zealand, who's still only trailed by 1-0. 13 minutes remaining. Yeah, Matt Hockin is one of the backroom staff for Sam Allardyce at Blackburn Rovers, and I bumped into him at the airport. I was heading out to Austria for the Japan game when England were playing in Graz, and he was heading out to Klagenfurt, and basically got because New Zealand were playing a warm-up game against Serbia, and he basically got this call as another substitution is being made, and Jeremy Christie's going to be coming on for Viselic. He got a call from Ryan Nelson, and he said, how do you fancy coming out to the World Cup? He said, I'd love to try and make out for a game. He said, no. He said, come out and work for New Zealand. He went, oh, right, okay, yeah. He said, well, I'll try and arrange that. He said, I'll see you in South Africa. He said, no, you need to come to Austria because we're doing 2 weeks of altitude training. And I think Matt then he'd had a family holiday down in either Cornwall or Devon, and he then had to just literally pack his bags, head out to Austria, and he'll probably see his family in another couple of weeks. So it's an interesting tale.
Tough, really, isn't it? You get trips like that and offers like that.
And then when he gets back, Blackburn will be starting pre-season training. Poor bloke's not going to get a holiday.
Oh, well.
And he's certainly, I think, with the help of Ryan Nelson, a key player behind the scenes for a New Zealand side that trails by 1-0. And that change has been made with Jeremy Christie as they search an equaliser, and Fallon on the volley. Just under 25 yards out from goal, right-footed, couldn't keep it down. And it's a goal kick.
Not pretty, because the ball was put diagonally in, a long ball in from the back. Got a shot in, though. Yeah. And I know people may wonder, but I'm talking about, come on, New Zealand, to get something out of this game, you're going to have to do something. And it may not be pretty, but you want something out of the game, and from that moment there, you got a shot in. You've been having a lot of possession of the ball, a lot of it in the mid-third, and then you've lost the ball. And you've got to start to hurt the Slovakian defences. You've got to give them something to think about. And I thought they would this half, but that's not been the case.
Well, just the one goal separates the two sides. It's New Zealand who are in search of an equaliser. 5 lives here at the World Cup in Rustenburg. Just a break in play. It's about 7 miles out of the mining town of Rustenburg is this stadium. Some hills that overlook the stadium with the terracotta roofs on the outbuildings as Elliott plays a long ball into the penalty area. That was too deep, and it will run away onto the athletics track behind that goal of Muka to our left-hand side. As we look to our left, in the very distance, you can see the outline of the Mahalasburg mountain range, but that really is a wasteland. In fact, you can actually see a platinum mining plant also to our left-hand side. There's a few electricity pylons, but it's a very barren bit of land away to our left-hand side. And I do think as well that the South African, the FIFA authorities here are making a little bit of an error with the ticketing, because this is not a sellout, and you've seen it quite a lot, that a lot of games have not been sold out. And what's happening is that around 3 hours before kick-off, tickets that have not, or are available for resale, are available for the South Africans to come and watch World Cup in their host country. But the FIFA are not communicating that to the South Africans. They're doing it on the websites, but it's too late. And I think that they're missing a trick there, FIFA, because the atmosphere, which there's a kaleidoscope of colours certainly inside the stadium, lots of yellows, orange, red, you name it. They're coming out here. You can obviously hear the vuvuzelas, but it could be a lot better. And I still think there's a missed opportunity by FIFA.
I think you're quite right there. I'm not too certain when you say missed opportunity. It just depends, exactly how they're going to make these tickets. But will they be free, or will they be very, very cheap? The marketing men have targets to reach. They want to do certain things, but also there's a reluctance sometimes to sell tickets and then find that you've not sold them all and really drop the prices, or almost give them away. But I know exactly what you're talking about. But I think the market people will probably say, well, we can't do that, they should have bought them earlier. And the thing is, they couldn't buy them earlier, they couldn't buy them now because they're too expensive.
Well, while we've been talking, there's been a change. Holosko has come on for Šešťák for Slovakia, who still lead by 1-0. I remember in Egypt in 2006 at the Africa Cup of Nations, they actually had a renter crowd. They all brought them in, and they were wearing boiler suits, and they had different colour suits to support whichever teams. That was very artificial. 4 years ago. Slovakia leading by 1-0. They're going to be making another change as well. Slovakia, who a few years ago dismantled Wales in Cardiff on the counter-attack. Vitek was certainly amongst the goal scorers that day. Marek Mintal, who has since retired from international football. I expected them to try and do that against New Zealand here today, as Holosko plays the ball in and will win a corner kick for Slovakia, who are looking for this second goal to put the game to bed. 7 minutes remaining. Don't forget, Royal Ascot at 2:30, and then from 3, Port Elizabeth, the Ivory Coast against Portugal. As Slovakia wait to make another change, they have a corner kick on this near side in the shadows of this main stand. Jędrzejczyk plays it very, very deep towards the far post, and it was a poor delivery, too heavy.
Once you get that on it, you were saying about the shots, it's the same with the corners and free kicks. Once you do get that height on it, it just seems to continue to go. It doesn't seem to come down at all. It just goes further and further.
Rare foray forward for New Zealand, and Wood, this young striker, but a burly striker nevertheless, of those who've never seen him play for West Bromwich Albion, was given a ball to chase from our distance. He looks very similar in stature to that of Kevin Davies, if that gives you an idea to his physical presence. As Slovakia are going to make another change, and Miroslav Stoch, who has yet to start for Chelsea, but of course he is on the books, he's looking for regular football. He is going to be replacing Vitek, who's scored the only goal of the game for Slovakia. And Miroslav Stoch has certainly had a successful season. He was part of Steve McLaren's team, 20 Enschede, that won the Dutch title. He's had a bit of a problem with a knee injury. That's the reason why he didn't start. But Miroslav Stoch is on for Slovakia as they go in search of a second goal with 6 minutes remaining. 5 live here in Rustenburg. Very scrappy as the ball is brought away by Weiss, who's always looked tidy when he's been in control of the ball, the Manchester City player. Very good footwork. Confident as well, as a helicopter in the clear blue skies hovers in the distance as the sun continues to shine here in Rustenburg. And still with the blustery conditions, New Zealand haven't given up hope as a throw down the right hand side towards Wood, but it's hooked away by West Brom's check up against his teammate Wood, or his clubmate Wood, of course, and then the ball bounces out for a goal kick. Graham Taylor.
It's very difficult, isn't it, in terms of making a comment without repeating yourselves about it. Not a great deal has happened, but I've been really, really surprised that New Zealand haven't been more positive. And I think that when that goal went in against them, I think it took a lot out of them. It was almost like, oh, here we go again, it's all over for us. And what has disappointed me, with Slovakia in the first half, I thought that they would be much more positive, move the ball about much more quickly than they did do. And in the second half, I really thought that New Zealand would come in and say, hey, we're really in with a chance of winning this game. Never mind the draw, we're in a chance with winning it. And they haven't done that, and that's really disappointed me, because I think, a lot of other people would see it that way. If you're going to lose trying to win, instead of just sort of, lose just by the odd goal. And I can't see that in New Zealand in this half, and that's been the biggest disappointment to me.
Well, certainly they had a fillip ahead of the World Cup when they beat Serbia by 1-0 in Klagenfurt, and that was the first time in 8 years they'd actually beaten a country in the top 50 of the world rankings. When you consider that Slovakia are 34th and New Zealand are down in 78th, they are always going to struggle in this competition, but they're still coming forward now. It was with Bertos, he's just over on the ball, and Jędrušek will take it away from Hamšík will take it away from him on that far side. New Zealand have won it back though. Elliott, triangular passing pattern as Reid scoops the ball forward, but Wood had actually just retreated a little bit too much, and as the ball was played forward on that right hand side, as it bounced towards the corner of the penalty area, Wood just had a little bit too much to do. So we're inside the last 3.5 minutes. It's not just the football though that 5 Live are doing here in South Africa. World Cup breakfast every morning, 6 o'clock with Nicky Campbell, and tomorrow he's in Soweto. And it's a big day here in South Africa. It used to be called Youth Day. It's South African Day, and of course the hosts are playing that key game tomorrow night against Uruguay, and I think it's important for the hosts that they do go through to the knockout stages. And I'll tell you the reason why it's such a historical day, because in 1976 there was a political uprising against the apartheid government, who wanted to introduce basically Afrikaans instead of English into the schools, and the students rebelled, and as they went to a political rally in Soweto, up to 600 students were killed on that day. So the 16th of June is always a day to remember, and I'm sure that'll be reflected with Nicky Campbell in World Cup breakfast tomorrow from 6 o'clock. 2.5 minutes remain. 5 Live here in Rustenburg, with Slovakia leading by 1-0. And now there's an opportunity for Lockhead. He's in a little bit of space for the all-white of New Zealand. His cross is a good one, and the header was wide. Smelts with the header. It was the best opportunity of the second half.
I thought, here it is. He's put the cross in. The header looked firm, but it was wide. It was well wide eventually. Chance, definitely a chance. That should tell them. A nice early cross came out. Little bit of play, got the ball forward, got the cross in, got the header in. Unfortunately wide for them. They need more of that.
8 goals in qualifying. He scored that goal against Serbia in Austria. He played in England. He had spells, non-league, AFC Wimbledon, before going to the homely surroundings of the Shay in West Yorkshire for Halifax Town. But he's certainly been a little bit of a nomad. He was born in Germany, raised in Australia, and now playing for New Zealand. And he could have been a hero had New Zealand managed to secure a point. They will next go to Nelspruit on Sunday against Italy, the world champions, who they actually played in South Africa last June. And would you believe they led 3 times in that game in Pretoria, but eventually lost 4-3. The memories, I'm sure, will come flooding back when they take on the world champions in their next match. But it would appear, just as it did in South Africa last year in the Confederations Cup, that it will be another losing experience for the All Whites. They lost to Spain 5-0. They were beaten 2-0 by South Africa, although in fairness they did actually finish 0-0 with Iraq, so they weren't beaten there. They just didn't score, and they are yet to hit the target so far today as we enter the last 60 seconds here on 5 Live. And Slovakia are going to make another change. And the Slovakian supporters, there are 2 bands of them, one on the bottom tier and one in the top tier, and the Slovak flags, the white, royal blue and red, being waved aloft. Their first World Cup finals as an independent nation, made all the sweeter that they beat the Czech Republic in qualifying, and their neighbours weren't able to make it to South Africa, are going to open up with a victory, it would appear, unless New Zealand can threaten here, as Fallon heads the ball into the penalty area, looking towards Smelts. Fallon, as it comes back out towards him, rolls it back. Cross will be put in once more into the penalty area. Wood actually heads it up in the air, and then eventually it'll be cleared by Czech. I suppose in some respects as well, when we think there's 3 additional minutes going to be added on, it's very, very hard for these players to compete when you think that, 2/3 of their squad play club football for native teams, so, they're semi-pro, and they're up. It's another level, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I mean, this is why I'm saying that there's a respect for them all of the time, but the chances are that they're going to come out of this tournament without having got a win or got a goal, and that's not an easy thing, to sort of. I think the players really know that. And once that goal went in, once Slovakia scored, you can almost see the New Zealand players say, well, not really surprised.
Yes.
I'm not really surprised.
Yeah, it would have had a deflating effect, I'm sure, on the New Zealand defence. They glut of goals, though, from Slovakia certainly hasn't materialised. Kucka has replaced Vladimir Weiss. This is a defensive move now from Weiss's father, Vladimir Weiss Sr., who's the coach of the national team, because Kucka is very much a defensive-minded midfielder, and they're just going to try and secure the 3 points, which will give them hope of progressing from Group F. That's what it was all about for them, the 3 points for Slovakia, as Liverpool's Martin Skrtel, with his shaven head, drills this free kick downfield, and it was Holosko who was caught offside. That'll be a free kick. As more and more empty seats now materialise, certainly getting away from the England game. The traffic the other night was horrendous. Jackie and Graham talked about travel problems getting here from Johannesburg. Wait till you try and get away. It was that's another area that the authorities certainly need to improve on.
Well, I was part of that coming away, and our driver actually said to us, do you want the back routes instead of the toll road where you have all these things? And he took us, he was very, very good. He took us round an area that we weren't aware of course, but he took us home that way, and we got home without any problems. But they have a toll route system.
Smelts with a cross, Reid with a header! New Zealand have equalised, and it's Reid who will be a hero in New Zealand. This will be a major, major achievement down under. It was Smelts with a cross. The big defender was up. His downward header past Slovakia, who are made to pay for not going in search of that second goal, and New Zealand can celebrate a draw. They will be lauded as heroes, and Reid, who only came as a latecomer into this squad of New Zealand, has got the goal that will have them celebrating in Auckland, in Wellington, in Christchurch, and certainly here in Rustenburg. Slovakia won, New Zealand won.
Well, there we are. At one stage, New Zealand just had the ball, didn't look as if they were going to do anything with it, didn't look as if they were even going to cross it. Time running out, and then all of a sudden the cross came in. There was Reid in the box, a very good header, and it's 1-1. I just wish, from their point of view, they'd been doing more of that throughout the half. It's got them their equaliser. They should have done more of that in this second half, and who knows, they could have won it.
Well, by my watch, we're inside the last 60 seconds. I think Reid has actually been booked for over-celebrating, but to be honest with you, who can blame him?
Shirt off.
Took his shirt off in celebration. Only made up his mind very, very late on that he wanted to play for New Zealand. He turned down the opportunity in 2007, and then he said, I've got a gut feeling I want to play for New Zealand. I'd be a little bit cynical about that, bearing in mind that, obviously he waited for New Zealand to qualify, but look at that, the final whistle has blown. The Slovaks have dropped to their knees, but the Wall Whites of New Zealand are embracing themselves, because make no mistake, to claim a point is a major achievement for the history of New Zealand football. And Winston Reid, who was capped by Denmark's under-21s, but in March said he wanted to play for New Zealand, that gut feeling will certainly mean that he will be lauded down under, and New Zealand have got a draw, and it'll be something that they'll be talking about down under for many years to come.
You've got to be pleased for them. I mean, we said before the game, there's been a lot of things said about them, why should they be here? All of the kind of things. And as far as I'm concerned, as I said at the beginning, you know, they have a right to be here. They won their group. If it's a poor group, etc., all of those kind, that's for FIFA to look at. They have a right to be here, and they have got that equaliser with almost the last touch of the ball in the game. I'm not going to say thoroughly deserved or anything like that at all, but it's there. They've got their result. It's their first result in a World Cup. Congratulations to them. Well done. Slovakia look absolutely sick about the whole thing.
Well, the Slovak players are distraught, but the New Zealand players are going to celebrate over on the far side, where the New Zealand flags are certainly flying high, as is New Zealand and Ricky Herbert, who tasted disappointment with New Zealand when he played in the 82 World Cup, but his side have got a memorable draw here against Slovakia. The final score in Rustenburg, Slovakia 1, New Zealand 1.